Today I make a box. Again. Welcome in. And the reason why I say box again is because this is the second box that I've made of this type of style. I'd say it's just going to be a little mitered box, and I'm going to start with just one piece of white oak here and resaw it down so it's nice and small. That's one thing I like to do with boxes in particular. When they're small, they need to be proportional. So resizing your lumber to the proper dimensions for an aesthetically pleasing box is extremely important, especially the smaller that you get. So this is my normal prep process, setting up the planer and then getting everything nice and flat so I can head it over to the bandsaw and start ripping. And if you needed another use for pencils, the eraser is nice and sticky and great for resawing small boards like this. It's not going to get in the way and interfere. And each pass I go back over to the planer to clean everything up, and leaves me with some nice clean stock to get to final sizing. Now part of this process is cutting a groove for the top and bottom panels, and you can see I just bump the fence over slightly to make sure that it's wide enough to be able to hold the top and bottom panel. And it is a little bit loose, and I did that intentionally for those top and bottom panels so that they would sit in the groove but still be able to move for wood movement, and the top lid is going to slide in and out, and I didn't want it to be binding too much. And now here I'm cutting my 45-degree miters on everything, and you can see I actually beveled the saw, so I tipped it over to the side instead of mitering it, which is, cranking the whole handle over. And I just have an alignment issue with my saw right now I need to fix, but I find this is a good alternative. And then I'm going to cut the top and bottom panel at the exact same time on the miter saw so that they are the exact same length after I ripped them to width, of course. Here is an interesting part. So you saw those bandsaw marks, and I wanted to fix it by doing a method I've never done before, and this is taking just a gouge, and I'm going to make a bunch of marks along the entire length of that. And you can see it creates this cool textured pattern for the lid. And the last thing I needed is to put a divider in the middle, because this box is going to be auctioned off. I am donating this to my kids' school charity auction. And so what is going to go into this box is some of my handmade jewelry. I will link to that down below in the description. I sell it on my website. I'm going to make a set of earrings and a pendant. And here's where that pencil comes in handy again for pushing these small pieces through. And of course, a bandsaw leaves a pretty rough cut. So just clean it up with the hand plane. I didn't want to sand it because you can undo the squareness. So I'm using my finger against the piece to keep it nice and square at 90 degrees. And then a little light sanding on everything just to get rid of any milling marks or burnishing from the planer. And we're ready for final assembly. And if you don't have one of these band clamps, they are essential for picture frames and miter boxes. It applies nice even pressure all the way around. And I saved all of the final sanding on the outside to do it all at once, so everything was nice and flush and cleaned up. And then it was time to attach this small piece onto the top. Again, a little bit more glue, and I waited on this because I wanted to be able to adjust it after the fact and make sure that everything lined up perfectly. So rather than a clamp on this, I'm going to go with a little blue tape trick. Use the tape as the clamp to hold it all in place, keep it nice and tight, and then let it sit for a couple hours for that glue to set up before we can move on to the final steps. Alright, so if you've seen my videos before, you know that I like to share my mistakes and show you what I've learned along the way in every project that I do. And on this one, I actually had to go pretty smoothly for a change, which is pretty nice actually, but I did have a design change along the way. So in the original box design, I was planning on ebonizing the outside, and all that means is you use a vinegar and iron solution to react to the tannins in white oak, and it'll turn it black, like this. I tested it and I decided that it would really wash out the grain match on the box. So I thought, well, rather than doing that, turning the outside black, which would make the top pop, what if I changed the top, made the top black, and have it really pop on this textured piece here. And I decided, again, to test, and if you can see that, that's actually the textured piece, and you'll notice that it really washed out a lot of that texture. And it drew your eye along the grain instead of along the texture. So, scratch that. I decided to change it up and completely get rid of the ebonization on this project in general. So I'll have to do a future video because I did promise you in my picture frame video, which I'll link to, that I would show you how to do the ebonization, and you're just gonna have to keep waiting. So subscribe, follow along, and eventually I'll get to that promise and show you how it works. And now it is time for final finishing. And this, I am actually using a hard wax oil for this piece, and then I didn't really like the shine that I was getting off of it, so I decided to finish it up with a little bit of paste wax, and I think that really helped that top textured piece pop, and then I was able to bring up the sheen by buffing it after it sat for about half an hour. And now I'll leave you to the final reveal.